All praise to Hawa. We're going to present this to you under fair use. Fair use. Now in theory, this would be Thoth the Trickster Part 2, but it has evolved into much more than that. I'm just going to continue with this name just to continue the lesson, what I'm trying to present. So I'm going to go right into where we left off in the first video because we got a lot of time to, take advantage of and cover. So as we were reading, we were starting to see how this was reaching into Christianity, how these hermetic teachings, these teachings from Khem or Egypt, right? Alchemy, chemistry, were influencing the first early Christians. Before they were Christians, of course, they were following the Hellenistic gods and the other gods from Rome, and Greek gods, the Egyptian gods, and these were all epithets we saw most of them of Thoth. So it says here, Chris Fordoi, the Good Shepherd. So Thoth was all over the place. He had a lot of names. So what does it say here? Let's read. It says free standing 4th century CE Roman sculpture, and even 3rd century ones are sometimes identified as Christ, the Good Shepherd. So sometimes, not saying that it is Christ. Okay, so remember, we're talking about Creofori, the Good Shepherd. Illustrating the pericope in the Gospel of John, and also the 2nd century Christian literary work, The Shepherd of Hermes. In two-dimensional art, Hermes Creophotos transformed into Christ, carrying a lamb and walking among his sheep. So Hermes, aka Thoth, Hermes Creophotos, now the epithet of Hermes, which is Thoth, transformed into the Christ, carrying a lamb and walking among his sheep. Thus we find philosophers holding scrolls, or a Hermes Creophotos, which can be turned into Christ given the law, and it's called Traditio Legis. Look this up. And the Good Shepherd, respectively. Peter and Linda Murray, the Oxford Companion to Classical Art and Architecture, page 475. The Good Shepherd is a common motif from the catacombs of Rome, Gardner 10, figure 54, and in sarcophagus reliefs where Christian and pagan symbolism are often combined. Again, let's read that again. The Good Shepherd is a common motif from the catacombs of Rome, and in sarcophagus reliefs where Christian and pagan symbolisms are often combined. Christian and pagan symbolisms are often combined. Okay, this is what we started to see at the end of the first video. We're going to continue with this. We're going to see how this expands and creates all the other religions and all the other mystery schools, whatever they call them, what I want to call them, making secure identifications difficult. You hear that? Making secure identifications difficult. The theme does appear in the wall paintings of the baptistery of the Dura Euphoros Church. If you remember from the first video what church that was, a house church of Dura Euphoros was before 256 CE and more familiar in the 6th century Christian mosaics, as in the Mausoleum of Gallia Placidia at Ravenna. And there is a famous freestanding sculpture said to be about 300 AD and made for a Christian in the Vatican Museums. So you see the Good Shepherd, which originated from Hermes. We also see that the god Mitra is portrayed holding a lamb or a ram. Hermes, the ram bearer. Hermes is Creophotos, the ram bearer, and the shepherd. He was considered the shepherd, and this is where we get the shepherd. Again, etymology online. Thoth, right? Ancient Egyptian god of wisdom and magic, hieroglyphics, and the reckoning of time. From Latin and from Greek, Thoth. From Egyptian, Tehuti, usually represented as a human figure with the head of an ibis. We remember that from part 1. By the Greeks, assimilated to their Hermes. So he's Hermes. Thoth is Hermes. And we just read who Hermes is, right? Creophotos, the Good Shepherd, one of his epithets. We talked about other epithets in the first video. We're going to talk a lot about other ones in this video. So it says here under Thoth, hermetic. 1630s, dealing with the occult science or alchemy. Occult science or alchemy. Occult science or alchemy. You're hearing that, right? From Latin, hermeticus. From Greek, Hermes, god of science and art, among other things. Among other things, you hear that? He's many other things, who was identified by Neoplatonist mystics and alchemists with the Egyptian god Thoth as Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great Hermes or Trinity, who supposedly invented the process of making a glass tube airtight, a process in alchemy using a secret seal, hence completely sealed. And who does all this stuff, man? Alright, so you see where it was influenced. Now again, I'm just doing a little bit of recap of the first video so we can continue on the second video. So again, we're talking about hermetic and occult science and alchemy. You just read that, right? So Hermetism is a religious, philosophical, and esoteric tradition based primarily upon writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, who we just saw was Thoth. These writings have greatly influenced the Western esoteric tradition, greatly influenced, and were considered to be of great importance during both the Renaissance and the Reformation. Okay, considered to be of great importance during both the Renaissance and the Reformation. Are you seeing, hearing this? Okay, this is Wikipedia, and they have the numbers there so you can look up the sources, how this is written in history books or in documents recorded. The tradition claims descent from Prisca theologia, a doctrine that affirms the existence of a single true theology that is present in all religions and that was given by God to man in antiquity. Present in all religions. Okay, you see the influence of remembering. Part 1, right? Let's go. And again, many writers, including Lactantius, Cyprian of Carthage, Augustine, Marsilio Ficino, Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, Giordano Bruno, Campanella, Sir Thomas Browne, and Ralph Waldo Emerson considered Hermes Trismegistus to be a wise pagan prophet who foresaw the coming of Christianity. Of course he foresaw it. Setting it up, man. Okay, like, you're hearing this, right? Wise pagan prophet. He was a pagan prophet, but he was wise, right? But he was pagan. Still, he was a prophet who foresaw the coming of Christianity. St. Thomas Aquinas reported that Trismegistus arrived at something akin to the doctrine of the Trinity. Who started the doctrine of the Trinity? Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great, or Thoth, right? Trinity. Thoth, we'll see how he was influencing this from way before the Hellenistic period in Greek. He was doing it back in Egypt, ancient Egypt, with Osiris, Isis, and Horus, the Trinity, and even back before that in Samaria and Mesopotamia. Alright, as you can see. So the Trinity is very influenced by Thoth and his different epithets, like St. Thomas Aquinas reported. It's akin to the doctrine of the Trinity. Alright, yeah, and let's not forget where Hermes Trismegistus gets his name. It says here, continuing, an account of how Hermes Trismegistus received the name thrice great is derived from the emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus. Now we know from the first video who also has a famous emerald tablet, right? It's Thoth, right? Blue jade type of indestructible rock, right? If you Google it, you'll see. Now we're gonna talk a little bit about it again, but it says that wherein it states that he knew the 3 parts of the wisdom of the whole universe. The 3 parts of the wisdom are alchemy, astrology, and theurgy. If you look at those 3 individually, research what they mean, you'll see what was influencing the early mystery schools and the religions we see today. So again, the many forms or epithets or personalities of Thoth or this deity. Thoth goes by many names which many people know but do not know where the name comes from. It says here there are many occult groups that practice under Thoth. And it says Thoth, Greek, Tehuti, Egyptian, Kemetic, African. Other names that Tehuti, Thoth go by throughout history says Hermes in Greek, their mythology version of Tehuti. It says Mercury for the Romans, their mythology version of Hermes and Tehuti. Then it says Tehuti, Thoth plays a very important role in ancient Egyptian Kemetic religions. Now we're going to start getting into all this like bird symbology and how it surrounds Thoth and the many epithets he has and the peacock and all these different kind of birds. But the first one we hear about or read about is the Ibis, as it says here. The Ibis, or attributes moon magic. Moon, again, Thoth was considered the deity of the moon before he was considered all the rest of the things they gave him, like for wisdom, math, astrology, writing. Then it says deities: Hermes, Mercury, Rubanga, Thoth, and Jah. There goes Jah again. Look at the etymology of Jah. You'll see what that means. And Iblis, it says here. This is the Islamic name for Satan and is referred to as the god of despair. He refused to worship man, and so God changed him into a Dijin, and that's a demon in the Muslim world, and exiled him as his followers from heaven, So we see the similarity between this Iblis and Iblis. All you see is a letter, right? A difference, the L. What is the difference when you like trace the word, you know, from all the translations in time in different cultures? So we also got the prophet Idris, which sounds very similar, who also is being related to Hermes and / Enoch, which we're going to get into how all these are starting to relate. Enoch, Thoth, Iblis, Idris, Hermes. Alright, so let's continue. Now throughout this video we're going to see a lot of images and symbolism, and it's going to be crazy. A lot of it's going to look crazy, and it's going to but before I do that, I would like to just remind you, now it says here, according to guess of Hermetism, right, or the knowledge that Hermes taught, that was the same as Thoth's, right, was a Hellenistic mysticism contemporaneous with the fourth gospel, and Hermes Trismegistus was the Hellenized reincarnation of the Egyptian deity Thoth, the source of wisdom, who was believed to defy man through knowledge of gnosis or Gnosticism. Okay, so it says Quispel says it's not completely certain that there existed before and after beginning of the Christian era in Alexandria a secret society, akin to a Masonic lodge. Okay, Masonry, Masonic lodges. Alright, the members of this group called themselves brethren, were initiated through a baptism of the spirit, greeted each other with a sacred kiss, celebrated a sacred meal, and read hermetic writings as defiant treatises for their spiritual progress. You see, hermetic writings. So now we're going to get into the Masons later on, right? But we're going to show a lot of images and symbolism. You're going to see where it has its origins, right? And not just Masons, right? But religions we talked about, right? So we're going to start going into the symbolism of the bird, and first we're going to talk about the phoenix, right? And Egyptian, the phoenix, and then we're going to go right into the peacock. And let's continue here. So it says here in Genesis 15:5-6. I guess it says the King James Version. It says, Abraham is told, look toward heaven and number the stars, if you are able to number them. Then he said to him, so shall your descendants be. And he believed the Lord, and he reckoned it to him as righteousness. The two versions of the Book of the Two Ways, both apparently composed at Middle Egyptian Hermopolis. Now, if we remember from the video 1, Hermopolis was the main place for the Thoth worship, Khem, right? Hermopolis for Hermes Trismegistus. It says here, and also included sections referring to an afterlife in which deceased commoners became stars in the sky, alongside the moon god Thoth. Again, moon god Thoth. Thoth was the ancient Egyptian god of learning and wisdom. Associated with the moon, he was called the Lord of Heavens. Lord of Heavens. If we remember, Lord was the title of the angelic beings. Beautiful of night, and the silent being in various eras. It says here, Thoth also appeared in the Bible in the book of Job 38:36, which dates back to the 6th century or beyond. One finds the lines, who put wisdom into Thoth? Who gave sex we understanding? I'm going to show you a different version here. And it says in the bottom here, in Job 38:36, a different version, who gives the Iblis wisdom? Or gives the rooster understanding? So see how they're referring to that word Thoth as the Iblis, and remember Thoth is portrayed as the Iblis in Egyptian mythology. And we continue here regarding the verse that Job mentions the Iblis. It says here, in his authoritative commentary on Job, Professor Marvin Pope writes about this as follows. J.G.E. Hoffman was probably right in taking Thoth to refer to the god Thoth himself. The consonantal orthography corresponds rather closely to the form of the name that prevailed in the 18th dynasty, the Huti, when the worship of Thoth was at its peak and spread to Phoenicia. Thoth was regarded as both the heart and tongue of the great sun god Ra. Thoth was also called Tehuti, the measurer. The Greeks identified Thoth with the god Hermes, and they credited him with inventing astronomy and astrology, the sciences of numbers and mathematics, geometry, and the land surveying, medicine, and botany. Also, they believed he was the first to organize religion and government. You hear that? And to establish the rules concerning the worship of the gods. The rules concerning the worship of the gods. Alright, Thoth. In the Book of the Dead, he is called the scribe of the mat, or just a scribe, another attribute, right? Scribe. Variants of his name are Techu, Techudi, Thoth, Tehuti, and again many others. So we're going to continue down here. It says Thoth is seen as the first Hermes and is often depicted as a man with the head of an Iblis. Again, there you go, Iblis. So Job 38 again says, who put wisdom into the Iblis, or Thoth, right? Which is a wading bird with a long curved beak, it says here. The Iblis is the Egyptian symbol for the heart. Okay, Egyptian symbol for the heart. And Thoth presides over the weighing of the heart ceremony, weighing individuals' true words, or the innermost intent in all of our thoughts and actions, determining who is admitted into heaven, much like the part of Saint Peter plays at the pearly gates. Okay, being related to Saint Peter. We're going to talk about this later on. Thoth is the final judge, and he embodies the rational powers of the sun and the intuitive, irrational energies of the moon again. So as we dig through Thoth and all his different personalities and epithets, you know, I just want to remind you, as it says here in Job, you know, who gives the Iblis wisdom, or gives the rooster understanding? That means, you know, even though there's these hijacks, these fallen angels, these gods, right? Who created them? You know, they all come from the Creator. Who gives them the wisdom? Who allows them to do all this order? Who, you know, he knows what he's doing, and he knows what he creates. So, who gives the Iblis wisdom? Let's not forget that, or gives the rooster understanding, because we're gonna start seeing also Thoth being related to Enoch. All right, so, all right, let's continue. So again, we're just talking about, you know, Thoth, Tehuti, right? Tehuti, Thothus of Byblos, from the Phoenician precursor of Thoth, or the Greeks associated both these gods with Hermes, right? Thoth, also known as Thoth, Egyptian, right? Thoth in Phoenician, Hermes, again, Greek, and Mercury, Roman, right? He was the mortal, later deified. He was mortal, later deified, or deified, right? What does that mean? He was man, and then he became a god, who also becomes or walks with God after being mortal. That was Enoch, right? You're also going to hear about Idris, the prophet Idris. The same thing, being exalted to the Most High, to Allah, right? He walked with God as well. Alright, so let's continue. And he's a prominent leader, it says, of the Atlantean refugees in the Nile Valley. Okay, prominent leader of the Atlantean refugees. We know that about Thoth already from the first video. He is the Atlantean deity of literature, magic, healing, and most associated with civilization, just like Thoth. And all these have the same attributes, right? In Greek myth, Hermes is the grandson of Atlas. So you can start tracing where Hermes is coming from, right? And Atlas is one of these first kings of Atlantis, right? His sons reigned, right? And as it says here, is relating Hermes as one of his grandsons, Atlas, grandsons of Atlas by Atlantis, Maya. The Theban recension of the Egyptian topic of the dead quotes Thoth as having said that the Great Deluge destroyed a former world-class civilization. I am going to blot out everything which I have made. The earth shall enter into the waters of the abyss of Nun, the sea god, by means of the raging flood, and will become even as it was in the primeval time. Alright, so Thoth is saying this, just like this angel that appeared to Noah was telling Noah that was going to happen, right? So they prepared him. It says here, his narration of the catastrophe is related to the Edfu text, which locate the homeland of the primeval ones, of a great island that sank with most of its inhabitants during the Teb Sepi, or the first time. Only the gods led by Thoth. Who are these gods, right? Are these monarchs before the flood, the biblical monarchs? we'll see. Led by Thoth, escaped with 7 favored sages. 7 favored sages, right? It says Enoch is 7th from Adam. Remember, they lived long. These first biblical patriarchs, they lived long years, long lives. So, as you can see in this chart I made, so you can get like a reference of the years they lived and who was alive and who was not. Who settled at the Nile Delta, where they created Egyptian civilization and a synthesis of Atlantean and native influences. Okay, I know we're all over the place, but let's continue to connect. So again, in Islamic tradition, Sayyid Ahmed Amuridin has pointed out that Hermes Trismegistus, right? Hermes, right? Thoth, has a major place in Islamic tradition. He writes, Hermes Trismegistus is mentioned in the Quran in verse 19, 56, 57. Mentioned in the book of Idris that he was a truthful, a prophet. We took him up to a high place, right? Idris went to a high place. The Jabarian corpus contains the oldest documented source for the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus, right? In the Muslim Arabian tradition, this is where the oldest source of the Emerald Tablet exists of Hermes Trismegistus, right? Down in the bottom here it says, these writings, Hermes Trismegistus is identified as Idris, right? So Hermes is Idris, the infallible prophet who traveled to outer space from Egypt. He traveled to outer space just like Enoch was taken up, right? Just like Thoth was shown, and he was from the sons of men, right? And then he later became like a god. It tells us in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right? And continuing with Idris, it says here, Idris is an ancient prophet and patriarch mentioned in the Quran, who Muslims believe was the 3rd prophet after Adam and Seth. Islamic tradition has unanimously identified Idris with the biblical Enoch. So unanimously identified Idris with the biblical Enoch. You hear this, right? Although many Muslim scholars of the classical medieval periods also held that Idris and Hermes Trismegistus were the same person. Okay, so Hermes, Enoch, Idris, all same person. All right. So we haven't got into Islam and how Thoth helped create this, but as you can see already, Hermes has a lot of influence in this Islamic tradition. So we're going to get into this a little more in depth later. So let's continue. So it says here, Idris is identified as the first of 3 Hermeses. The first, Hermes al-Haramisa, Hermes, invented the alphabet, writing, tailoring, medicine, and astronomy, just like Thoth did, right? Inventor of writing and medicine and astronomy. This Hermes also built the eponymous pyramids, right? Just like they give the credit to Thoth and Enoch and other sources. And it says, the second one, the Babylonian Hermes, master of Pythagoras, taught math, science, and philosophy. Again, Hermes and Thoth, same thing. The third, Egyptian Hermes, was a builder of cities and master of alchemy. In Manichaeism, Hermes was one of the 5 major prophets before Mani. The oldest extant version of Hermes Trismegistus' Emerald Tablet is ascribed to Jabir ibn Hayyan. Again, the Emerald Tablet, as it says here, is also known as the Smaragdine Tablet, or the Tabula Smaragdina. It's a compact encrypted piece of hermetica reputed to contain the secret of the prima materia and its transmutation. You hearing this? It was highly regarded by European alchemists as the foundation of their art and its hermetic tradition. The original source of the Emerald Tablet is unknown, it says here, but we know it's from Thoth. Although Hermes Trismegistus is the author named in the text. Okay, again, Hermes, who is Thoth. And we continue with Idris. It says here, the relationship between the name Idris and Hermes, right, / Thoth, may rest on the name of Hermes' initiatory guide, Poimandris, in the ancient Greek corpus Hermeticum. Although the form of the name Idris is not a recognized Arabic word, its etymological root, drs, means to teach. The prophet mentioned of Idris as the first to use the pen conforms to Egyptian iconography of Thoth, right? The first to write, the first to use the pen. Also, Enoch is giving credit to the first one to write down, or the first one to write down a book, like the book of Enoch. Who combined, it says here, continuing, who combined with the Greek Hermes became Hermes Trismegistus. So it says the prophet's mention of Idris as the first to use the pen conforms to Egyptian iconography of Thoth, who combines with the Greek Hermes became Hermes Trismegistus. The narrative of Idris' cunning entry into paradise parallels the Homeric hymn to Hermes, where Hermes elevates himself into the Olympian pantheon by offering a sacrifice to himself. So you hear this. So not only Thoth goes up to and gets shown heaven, Enoch as well, Idris as well. Right now we're seeing Hermes' version of his story, right? He goes up to the Olympian pantheon, right? So we all know that these are the same people, same character. That's why they have the same story. Alright, so we're following on. Let's continue. Says here, by the 10th century, Abu Mashar al-Baghi identified Idris as the biblical Enoch and Hermes Trismegistus. Okay, you hearing this? Hermes al-Mutala bil-Hikmah, the legendary Greek figure associated with the Egyptian god Thoth. The historian Mas'udi identified Enoch as Idris the prophet and the Hermes of the Sabians. These associations were echoed by the bibliographer Ibn Nadim and the polymath of Al-Biruni, 973 to 1050, who equated Idris with Mercury, the Buddha, and Hermes. You hear this? Again, Mercury, we already knew that. Now we're adding Buddha into the picture, and we're going to see this later on as well. Now, before we continue referencing Enoch, it's a touchy subject, so just want to remind everybody here, in case some people might not know. So as it says in Genesis 4:17, it says, and Cain knew his wife. So after he was banished from Eden and he went to the land of Nod, he said he had a wife. Some say it was his daughter or his sister, right? And she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. So as you can see the line here of Adam on the top, you can see Cain had an Enoch, and then there's also an Enoch under Seth. So usually when we're talking about Enoch or the book of Enoch or anything like that, we usually think it's in reference to the son of Seth, Enoch, and not the one from Cain. So which one are we talking about when we're referencing Enoch to Thoth and Idris and all this? Is the son of Seth or the son of Cain? It's something we have to figure out, but we have to leave this possibility open, right? Alright, so let's continue. From the author of this book, Genesis 6, I believe it's called, it says, Thoth was the keeper of the magical arts that made him the master of the gods, the one who revealed all knowledge of the 7 sacred sciences. You're going to see 7 related to Thoth a lot. 7, as well as Enoch and Idris and all these people and Hermes. So the 7 sacred sciences and religion to humankind. Alright, so he revealed the 7 sacred religions to humankind. So it says Thoth was the one who transmitted mystical secrets to his obscure followers, members of a reticent snake order we will examine later. Thoth too was regarded to be the deity credited with being the god of wisdom, the inventor of letters and writing. Thoth was transformed into the god through wisdom. It says Thoth was transformed into a god through wisdom, so he was made into a god, right? Again, he wasn't a god in the beginning. We know also from other sources that Thoth invented hieroglyphics and was the one who brought science, geometry, and architecture to humankind. Okay, you're hearing this? So Thoth was further celebrated as the Greek Hermes. There you go again. The Greeks and Romans identified Hermes with their pantheistic god Mercury. Mercury was the patron deity of learning, the chosen scribe for the plethora of gods. Scribe, just like Thoth, just like Enoch, scribe. He served as their ordained messenger, again consistent with that of Enoch's responsibilities. Mercury was the son of Zeus, Jupiter, Maya. Mercury was also attributed with the invention of writing. In addition, Mercury signed sentences onto the souls of the dead. And continues here, Unger's recites a similar version, conceding Hermes was Mercury and that Hermes was the son of the god Zeus. So we read, and the Nephilim daughter of Atlas, a person named Nalat. So we read earlier that Hermes was the grandson of Atlas. So Zeus is the son of Atlas, if he's his dad, as we read here. It says, continues, Unger's further claims Hermes wore winged sandals, eerily identical to medical snake motifs, as well as wings on his hat, all the while being a guide for the dead into the underworld, just like Thoth. Even though Enoch was rendered to be Hermes, Thoth, among the Egyptians, and Mercury was Enoch's appellation among the Greeks, Enoch was also known as Hermes among the Greeks. The Greeks, interestingly enough, identified their Hermes, Mercury, with Thoth, Hermes of Egypt, believing he built the pyramids of Egypt. There you go again. Credit for building the pyramids of Egypt, and that's after the 16th, 17th, 18th dynasty. Adding to Enoch's alternative reputation, the mystical Hebrews, according to Timothy Freak and Peter Gandhi, right, the mystical Hebrews, who co-wrote the Hermetica, the lost wisdoms of the pharaohs, referred to Enoch as Idris. The Phoenicians knew Enoch as Thoth, which is very close to Egyptian Thoth or Thoth, while the Arabians knew Enoch as Idris, right? Very similar again, Idris, and we're gonna read later Iblis. So if you're not too familiar with Enoch, right, in the Hebrew Bible, right, he's one of the he's seventh from Adam in line, one of the biblical pre-flood patriarchs, and it says here Hebrew Hanak, Arabic and Quranic literature, Idris, right? We're relating it to Idris again here. Is a figure in biblical literature in the 7th generation from Adam. He was considered the author of the book of Enoch, and also called Enoch the scribe of judgment. Again, scribe, just like Mercury, just like Thoth. In addition to an appearance in the book of Genesis of the Hebrew Bible, Enoch is subject of many Jewish, Christian, and Muslim writings, okay? Enoch was the son of Jared, the father of Methuselah, and the great-grandfather of Noah, yes, the flood Noah. At 65 years old, he begot Methuselah. Regem and Gaidad are also mentioned as his sons according to Enoch. The Bible says that Enoch lived 365 years before he was taken by God. Okay, so when it's going to explain here, when they say taken, the text reads that Enoch walked with God, not taken. So he walked with God and he was no more, for God took him. So, which some Christians interpret as Enoch entering heaven alive. So in the story of Enoch, he doesn't die, right? God takes him. When he turns 365, he goes up. And right there he gets to go to heaven and he becomes like an angel, right? After that he's called Metatron, and we're going to read about that later in the rabbi literature. As it says here, Metatron, one who metes out or marks off a place, a divider, and a fixer of boundaries, a measurer. Although several other suggestions exist, or Metatron is an archangel in Judaism, and known in Judaism as a recording angel, or the chancellor of heaven, a scribe, right, recorder, which makes Adramelech his infernal counterpart. We're going to learn about Adramelech later. The name Metatron is not mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, nor is it mentioned in the early Enoch literature. How the name originated is a matter of debate. Although Metatron is mentioned in a few brief passages in the Talmud, he appears primarily in mystical Kabbalistic texts within the rabbinic literature. Okay, you heard that? In that tradition, he is the highest of the angels and serves as the celestial scribe or recording angel scribe. According to Jewish Apocrypha, Metatron is the name Enoch received after his transformation into an angel, right? After God took him, or after he walked with God, you see? The book of Genesis 5:24 is often cited as evidence of Enoch's bodily ascension into heaven. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. There you go. So we continue here, just some more correlation with different epithets of Thoth, right? Among the Greeks and Romans, it says the invention of letters, again, was generally attributed to the Phoenicians. For the Greeks, this was natural, as they received the greater part of their alphabet directly from Cadmus, a native of Phoenicia, and would therefore be likely to think, yet the honor of invention belonged to that country. Yet it is clear that some of the most learned of the Greeks regarded Cadmus in his true light, not as the inventor, but merely as the introducer of letters. Plato expressly says that Thoth, the Egyptian, or Thoth, right, was the first to divide letters into vowels and consonants, mutes and liquids. So again, just to remind you, the scribe, right? Thoth is known as the scribe. Hermes as well. Hermes Trismegistus, Mercury as well. The record keeper, Metatron, you just heard. Enoch was also known as the scribe and record keeper. So you see, writing comes from Thoth. Okay, so let's continue. It says an individual of this same name, Thoth or Thoth, is also mentioned by Sanconiathon, the historian as the inventor of letters, but it is claimed by him as Phoenician, living in the 12th and 13th generation after the deluge. And this might be likely because we know our chronology is messed up. Just study the findings of Anatomy Flamenco. I think that's the name of it. New chronology. Just Google new chronology. It says, to reconcile these conflicting accounts, Jackson in his chronological antiquities holds that letters were invented by Thoth, the Phoenician, a son of Mizraim, about 5 centuries after the deluge, but were introduced into Egypt 400 years afterwards by a second Thoth, whom he supposed to have been identical with the celebrated Hermes Trismegistus of the Greeks, the inventor, according to Diodorus, of grammar, music, letter, and writing, like I just said. Hermes as well. Says here, the Emerald Tablet. The Phoenician tradition relates to us that the Emerald Tablet of Enoch, Thoth, Hermes, was found by a Phoenician priest, an initiate of the Great White Fraternity, on the dead body of Hermes in the land of Kabirim. You hearing this? It was written by Enoch himself, or by his son Methuselah, or by one of his faithful adepts. You see what there's relating tablet to Enoch. Now we're saying the Enoch is Thoth, we're seeing the Enoch is Idris, which is Hermes. So okay, so look at all this correlation. And so it says it was written by Enoch himself, or his son Methuselah, or by one of his faithful adepts in Canaanite Phoenician letters. And if we see the Emerald Tablet of Thoth, it does look like Canaanite Phoenician letters, Paleo Hebrew actually. On a piece of emerald stone with the purest of gold. It contained the process of alchemy, which focused on a spiritual enlightenment. There you go again, alchemy. Through a change in the physiology of the body based on transmutation of the sexual force. So you see, again, just to remind you what the origins of Christianity, what teachings of Christianity, where they come from these hermetic, hellenistic teachings of Hermes, of this Emerald Tablet, which was very popular during the Reformation and the Renaissance times we read earlier, right? Now, since we're referencing the Phoenicians, right, we're going to continue with the Phoenicians here, and we're going to get into the Phoenix now. So it says here, Professor George Rawlinson, in his story of Phoenicia, tells us that Phoenicia derived its name from the forest of date or phoenix palms, which grew there in great luxuriance. So far so good, but whence did the phoenix palm derive its name? Horapollo says, a palm branch was the symbol of the phoenix, a palm branch. Yes, but what or who was the phoenix? Sanchomaton, or Sanchomaton, the Phoenician writer, states that Phoenix was the first Phoenician. Phoenix then was a man. Alright, so they're saying Phoenix was a man then, right? They're referencing a person. Right, the phoenix. Now the word phoenix is the Greek form of the Egyptian term Pa-Hanok, the house of Enoch. In Hebrew, Enoch also is Hanok. Thus the mystery of that ancient race is solved. They were the sons and descendants of Enoch and Noah and his 3 sons, who after the flood started their westward march. Their descendants have kept it up since, settled first north of the Persian Gulf in the bushlands of Mesopotamia, where they found a dusky race in occupation of the land, the ancient Sumerians, and from thence towards the Mediterranean. Alright, so they're saying that the Egyptians, or these people, right, the Sumerians or Mesopotamia area, are the descendants of Enoch and Noah. Well, it makes sense because we know that on that side was most of the sons of Khem, right? They are descendants of Noah and Enoch. So, is it far-fetched? No. Let's continue here. It says here, the house of, or the father of the house of, the individual designated by the proper name, hence the Egyptian name Grecianized as Phoenix, was apparently derived down from Pa-Hanok or Fahanok, or Pa-Enoch, the name of the father of the house of Enoch. The Phoenix cycle, therefore, is the cycle of Pa-Hanok, the cycle of the house of Enoch. The initial period again, the life of Enoch, Pa-Hanok, is a great year, or a year of years, 365 or 365 and 1/4 years. The Greeks gave the name phoenix to the palm tree branch, which as a hieroglyphic in Egyptian denoted the year 365 or 365 and 1/4 days. Thus, Horapolo refers to the phoenix, the bird, as signifying in Egyptian a soul continuing a long time here, or a man returning home after a long time from a foreign land. So you see how they related the phoenix to Enoch and why. Remember, as it says in Genesis 5, Enoch walked with God. He didn't die. He walked with God when he was 365 years, right? Just like the great year of the palm tree here, the hieroglyphic, the Egyptian hieroglyphic, which is 365. And it's of a soul continuing a long time, since all these people, the patriarchs, especially Enoch, because he didn't die, right? They lived a long time, and Enoch actually didn't die, so his soul did continue for a long time, right? And a man returning home after a long time from a foreign land, so he did go up to heaven, right? And he came back. So let's continue. In ancient Egypt, the pa prefix to a proper name designates the father of the house of, or the house of, that person. The phoenix, or ph, or anix, Pahanok, is the Grecianized form of the Egyptian title for the house of Hanok or Enoch. The legend of the phoenix is nothing more than the ancient traditions concerning the life of the biblical hero Enoch. According to the biblical narrative, Enoch was taken to heaven after 365 years. In ancient Egypt, this was considered a great year. Hence, the date palm tree phoenix dactylifera hieroglyphic was used to represent the year. This might also explain the Jewish and Egyptian traditions concerning the phoenix and the palm tree, as mentioned above, and we're going to start seeing that, how that starts showing up in these hermetic teachings and drawings and all that, and rabbinic literature. The palm tree and the phoenix, a bird on top of it. Alright, so let's continue. It says, according to the biblical narrative, Enoch in his 365th year walked with God, and he was taken to heaven. According to the Hebrew 11:5, Enoch was translated because he pleased God. According to biblical chronology, it was the 987th year from Adam, almost 1,000 years, when this translation of Enoch, phoenix, occurred. This 987th year, rounded, may be the basis for the legend of the 1,000-year phoenix cycle. Okay, you hear that? So this almost happened when he walked with God when Adam was almost 1,000 years old, so 987 years old. But he was already dead because he died at 930. We remember, right? Greek legends of the phoenix. The modern usage of the term phoenix comes from the Greek association with the date palm. In ancient Egypt, the Bennu bird and the date palm were given the same name. In many cases, were considered synonymous. Some historians speculate the Greeks associated the purple color of the murex shellfish, made famous by the Phoenicians, with the similar purple color of the date palm fruit. Hence, they believed the term phoenix was applied to the Bennu bird, date palm idea of renewal, found in ancient Egyptian traditions. This association was understood in later medieval thought, as shown by Juan de Orozco's Sacra Symbola Agrigento 1601 on the right. Picture right here, as you can see. In this Latin book of emblems, he shows the phoenix nesting in a palm tree. As already mentioned, this same idea is found in various translations of Job 29:18-19, where the palm tree and the phoenix were used interchangeably. So again, we're going to start seeing this again, like I said. And I believe this drawing also can be found in the hieroglyphica. These are hermetic drawings as well later on. The same image you see here of the Greeks used. And the Bennu bird, again, another bird being associated to this figure Enoch, which slash Thoth, remember, slash Hermes. So again, Thoth, another bird. So let's continue. It says here, the Bennu is an ancient Egyptian deity linked with the sun creation and rebirth, right? Rebirth. It may have been the inspiration for the phoenix in Greek mythology. It says here roles. According to Egyptian mythology, the Bennu was a self-created being. Said to have played a role in the creation of the world. It was said to be the Ba of Ra, okay, and enabled the creative actions of Atum. It was said to have flown over the waters of Noon that existed before creation, landed on a rock and issuing a call that determined the nature of creation. It was a symbol of rebirth and was therefore associated with Osiris. Again, we're going to get into the whole how Thoth is related to Osiris, right? With the Trinity, Osiris, Isis, and Horus, right? And how he was, the whole rebirth, how he was put back together with Thoth's help. Isis, used Thoth's help. So, this is another correlation here. The Bennu bird, we're relating to Enoch, the phoenix, right? Who is / Thoth. Alright, let's follow along. And it says here, some of the titles of the Bennu bird were He Who Came into Being by Himself and Lord of Jubilees. The latter epithet referred to the belief that the Bennu periodically renewed itself like the sun. Its name is related to the Egyptian verb WBNSS, meaning to rise in brilliance, Waban, or to shine, right? Rise in brilliance, to shine. Who else is referred to as the shining ones? Right, all these gods, these stars, these falling angels, morning star, the shining one, Lucifer. Okay, let's go. Now this Bennu bird, right, it's like a type of stork, right? You know the stories about the stork, right? Bringing the babies, bringing the new life, right? You can see here what a stork, scientific name here. One of them is, it says Mycteria ibis, right? So it's the same thing as Thoth. Thoth was the head of the ibis. Like a type of stork. Bennu bird, phoenix, Enoch, Thoth / Thoth, Idris / Hermes, right? Same people. Now let's not forget who Iblis is, right? Iblis, right? Almost sounds like Iblis, right? The shining one. We just saw the Bennu bird, the shining one. Iblis is the devil in Islam, right? The shining one, Lucifer. Rabbinic tradition believed the phoenix or shoal is what was referenced in Job 29:18-19, where it states the following. This is the verse we just mentioned before. Then I said, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand, shoal. My root was spread out by the waters, and the dew lay all night upon my branch. Job 29:18-19. The English word sand in verse 18 is the Hebrew word shoal. This association of the phoenix with shoal is further confirmed by the LXC and TN, the lexicon and Tanakh translations, I believe, of Job 29:18 and 19. Notice in the verses below the association of the phoenix with the palm tree as in ancient Egypt. And I said, my age shall continue as the stem of a palm tree. I shall live a long while. My root was spread out by the water, and the dew would lodge on my crop. My glory was fresh in me, and my bow prospered in his hand. I thought I would end my days with my family and be as long-lived as the phoenix. My roots reach in water and dew lying on my branches. Tanakh, Job 29:18-19. You see, that was the 3 different versions right there. Alright, so it is the phoenix, as you can see, rabbinic literature, and they follow that. They state this a lot. As it says here, it seems the Jewish legend of the phoenix involved a mythical bird, the shoal. This bird, because it did not partake of the forbidden fruit, was taken to heaven to live for 1,000 years. The bird was taken to heaven. The bird walked with God. Okay, so let's continue. Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, or Rashi, as he was commonly called, had this to say concerning the phoenix. It is a bird whose name is Shoal, and the death has no power on it. And death has no power on it, because it did not taste the fruit from the tree of knowledge. At the end of 1,000 years, it renews itself and returns to his youth. So you see where the 1,000 years of the phoenix comes from, this reference, right? Because he didn't eat of the forbidden fruit. Alright? according to rabbi literature, right? Rabbi scholars, right? Just to finish up here, it says Jewish legends of the phoenix. Jewish tradition from the Bereshit Rabbah 19:5 states the following concerning their legend of the phoenix. Okay, Jewish literature, right? It says Eve gave the cattle, beasts, and birds to eat of it the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. So she didn't just give it to Adam; she gave it to all the animals too, as it says here. All obeyed her and ate thereof, except a certain bird named Shol, as it is written, Then I said, I shall die with my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the shoal. And that's very similar to the verse in Job 29:18 and 19. Says here, Horapolinis in his Hieroglyphica 1595. Now we're going to get into what this Hieroglyphica was, right? This book, this hermetic book, this translation of the Egyptian hieroglyphics for these Greek Hellenistic hermetic followers, right? And it says here, states the following concerning the year. When they would represent a year, they delineate Isis, example, a woman. When they would represent a year otherwise, they delineate a palm tree branch. Because of all others, this tree alone at each renovation of the moon produces one additional branch, so that in the 12 branches the year is completed. Wow. On the surface, it does not appear obvious why the Egyptians associate the Bennu bird and the palm tree with the phoenix. We know both Jewish and Greek thought realized this association, but they do not give a reason for it. The symbolism of a bird's renewal or rebirth and flight into heaven is a common theme regardless of the tradition. Chinese, Indian, and Native American legends of the phoenix. In China, the legend centers around the Feng or Heng Huan. This mythical bird comes to earth to help in the development of mankind and then returns to heaven. Like an angel. We'll get into that later. In India, the bird was called the Veena, and the Native Americans called it the Thunderbird. And again, we're going to get into also as well later one of the epithets of Thoth, and as we are getting close to relating all these gods, the mythical gods of the ancient past, one of them was Thor, right? And he's related to thunder as well. So let's continue. It says Egyptian legends of the phoenix. Most traditions concerning the phoenix appear to originate in the legends of the ancient Egypt. It was in Egypt where the Bennu bird, a heron or stork-like bird, again earlier we saw that the Iblis is the scientific name for a type of stork, right? So what is the difference? Iblis again was Thoth, right? And we're relating the phoenix to Enoch, or the house of Enoch, what it meant in the Egyptian. Phoenix, the Phoenician word, where they got it from, and that is Enoch, right? And slash Thoth. So again, let's continue. It says, and the palm tree are first associated with the phoenix legend. Interestingly, a palm tree or palm shoot is the hieroglyph for 365-day year in ancient Egypt. Horapolinis in his Hieroglyphica 1595 again states the following concerning the year. When they would represent a year, the daily Isis. Okay, so we already read this right before, so that's from the hieroglyphic. As you can see right here towards the right, the palm tree, the hieroglyph, the symbol used for the year in ancient Egypt. You can see what it looks like. So again, we're going to start seeing all these images again. We're going to go into the Hieroglyphica, and we're going to start seeing how it all relates to alchemy and these teachings that they were transferring from Egypt to Greece, right? And from there to Rome, and continuing to create the religions that we see today. For example, as it says here, symbols and logos, the double-headed phoenix of Hermes. Again, Hermes slash Thoth, right? The story of the phoenix comes from the ancient Egypt during the origins of the legend of Hermes. The phoenix is said to rise from the flames and ashes of its own burning death. The phoenix symbolizes transformation of consciousness that comes from dying and being reborn, much like the Christian concept of resurrection or the Eastern idea of reincarnation. You hear that? Where we start hearing about the idea of resurrection. The double-headed symbol for Hermetic tradition offers the additional Eastern concept of duality and paradox of human cognition. As 33-degree Freemasonic author Manly P. Hall said in his book, The Phoenix, an illustrated review of occultism and philosophy, Among the ancients, a fabulous bird called the phoenix is described by early writers. In size and shape it resembles the eagle, but with certain differences. The body of the phoenix is one covered with glossy purple feathers, again purple, and the plumes in its tail are alternately blue and red. The head of the bird is light in color, and about its neck is a circlet of golden plumage. At the back of its back, the phoenix has a crest of feathers of brilliant colors. The phoenix is said lives for 500 years, and at its death, its body opens and the newborn phoenix emerges. Because of this symbolism, the phoenix is generally regarded as representing immortality and resurrection. There you go again. The phoenix is one sign of the secret orders of the ancient world. Okay? The phoenix again is one sign of the secret orders of the ancient world and of the initiate of those orders. For it was common to refer to one who had been accepted into the temples as a man twice born or reborn. Wisdom confers a new life, and those who become wise are born again. And you see how the Masons, where they got this symbology from, the symbol you see here with double-headed phoenix. We saw earlier with Hermes as well. Again, the symbol of the self-born, who is the androgynous phoenix in the esoteric symbol. The double-headed phoenix is the prototype of an androgynous man, for according to the secret teachings there will 33rd degree Freemasonry P. Hall. Again, you see how their esoteric teachings, what they use the phoenix as you can see the drawing right from this book. You can see the cross, the crucifixion. You can see Jesus with the phoenix, the resurrection, right? This is their books, their drawings. Take a look where we start seeing again the hermetic teachings influencing Christianity, right, as we read earlier, right? We'll be getting into Horus soon and how it relates to Thoth and the phoenix here, but as it says here, Horus the brave, the offspring of the sun, all glorious, whom the sun has chosen, and the valiant Ares Mars has endowed. His goodness remains forever, whom among loves, whom fills with good the temple of the phoenix. To him the gods have granted life. Horus the brave, the son of Heron Ramestes, the king of the world. He was protected king of the world, right? Who else is known as the king of the world? He was protected Egypt and subdued her neighbors. Him the sun loves. The gods have granted him great length of life. He is Ramestes, the Lord of the world. Lord of the world. Lord, remember what Lord means. The immortal, the obelisk of Heliopolis. 3rd verse. It says in the bottom there, continuing, the phoenix is one of the most sacred symbols of the brotherhood we know of as the Order of the Quest. It symbolizes the morning star, who is the son of the sun. Son of the sun? The sun, right? The sun, the second coming, the sun, the morning star. Who else is known as the morning star? Lucifer. Who was the shining one? The Bennu bird, right? The Bennu bird is a type of Iblis, right? Who is the beast? Thoth. And sounds like Iblis, another Satan in Muslim world. Morning star, we have the phoenix here, symbolizes the morning star, as it says here. Continuing, the father in which we celebrate through the rising of this most glorious firebird from the flames into immortality and reincarnation. The phoenix is the sun and the Messiah that has risen to become the soul of the sun god Ra. You see this? The sun and the Messiah. Wow, this is sounding very similar to something we know as Christianity, right? The beginning and what they follow, right? The Son, the Trinity, the Messiah that rises after 3 days of being dead, the risen, reincarnated, immortality. It says, we then find the phoenix with the Gnostics and then subsequently adopted as a symbol in early Christianity, that we now find today in the eagle of St. John, which is really the phoenix, right? It says here again, the eagle of St. John, look it up, which is really the phoenix. The picture to the right depicts Christ in the phoenix mosaic in the church of SS Cosma e Damiano in Rome. The phoenix is the bright morning star in the Bible in Isaiah 14:12. Again, The phoenix is the bright morning star in the Bible in Isaiah 14:12. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. And also in Revelation 22:16, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star. Alright, so you got Jesus himself referring to himself as the morning star as well. Alright, I didn't say it. Again, as a reminder, I mean, we're just talking about Hermes, right? Slash Thoth slash Enoch slash the phoenix. Right, so again, many Christian writers, right, we read earlier, considered Hermes Trismegistus to be a wise pagan prophet who foresaw the coming of Christianity. They believed in the Eschatologia, the doctrine that a single true theology exists, which threads through all religions, okay? And it says here, continuing, in order to demonstrate the verity of the Eschatologia, Christians appropriated the hermetic teachings for their own purposes. By this account, Hermes Trismegistus was either a contemporary of Moses or the third in line of men named Hermes, Enoch, Noah, and the Egyptian priest king who is known to us as Hermes Trismegistus, on account of being the greatest priest, philosopher, and king. So, is this Enoch or Thoth, or is this a title that was given to priests? Is that why Enoch and Noah and them were considered the same, and Hermes? Is this a title? Or are these the same characters, you know? So let's continue. Now, speaking of Christians appropriating hermetic teachings for their own, and also this resurrection theme, right? It says here, the peacock as a symbol, right? Another bird we're going to get into right now. Again, it's going to have a lot of information regarding the peacock and the importance and significance with what we're studying with Thoth. So it says here, the peacock was a symbol of immortality because the ancients believed that the peacock had flesh that did not decay after death. The Greek philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras wrote that the soul of Homer moved into a peacock, perhaps reflecting on the importance of the centuries-old popularity of the Greek poet. While continuing to keep its association with wealth, the bird, which replaces its feathers every year, also became a symbol of renewal and resurrection in early Christian and Byzantine culture. Peacock imagery appears in early Christian tomb paintings and mosaics, especially concerning the resurrection. It says here, the peacock has also been subject of other various myths and legends, including those of religious significance. And this is going to corroborate with what we just read and some other things we read before. It says, in Christian mythology, it is believed that the peacock, who declined to eat the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden, was rewarded for its abstinence, whereby its flesh would never decay after death. Wow, this sounds just like the story of the rabbi literature about the phoenix, right? The shoal. It says that because it didn't eat of the forbidden fruit, it got to live for 1,000 years in heaven. Look at the similarity between the phoenix and the peacock right here in this Christian mythology. It didn't eat the forbidden fruit, so it actually, whereby its flesh would never decay after death. Right, it says here. So let's continue. It is through Christian and Byzantine art that the peacock then became associated as a symbol of resurrection and paradise. Naturally, though, the peacock is also known to shed and replaces his feathers every year, and as such added to the legend of the peacock as a symbol of rebirth or renewal for Christ. For who? Christos. For who? For Jesus. Krishna. Jesus Krishna. Now let's take a look at it towards the middle here. It says, now it just so happens that one of the old spellings of phoenix is phoenix or phoenix in Greek transliterations. Like the name Lucifer, phoenix means shining one. And if we add phoenix in its Greek value, we get phoenix, so let's say a 666 according to them. So remember the Bennu bird, or the phoenix, Egyptian phoenix, the Bennu bird, right, means the shining one. Do you guys remember that? Alright, corroboration right here. Continuing, it says, it depended on what area of the world the pagan lived as to what type of bird was called the phoenix. Now listen to this. To the Egyptian, it was the heron. To the Babylonians, Assyrians, and Hindus, it was the peacock. So the phoenix and the peacock, again, same. To the North American Indian, it was the eagle. Okay, so if you've been following the eagle, you've been seeing that the eagle has been conquering and enslaving everybody. Wherever it goes, it conquers. Follow the eagle. Now we're going to see that it's relating to the phoenix. And again, phoenix slash Enoch slash Thoth, eagle. Okay, so another bird coming into the picture. To the Central and South Americans, he was the Quetzal. Now we're going to get to this being related to Quetzalcoatl, okay, the Quetzal, the flying serpent, later on. It says here, of all the birds, the peacock most resembles the traditional description of the phoenix. Okay, again, of all the birds, the peacock, right, most resembles the traditional description of the phoenix, the bird we've been talking about before. The phoenix is the legendary bird of resurrection that is sacrificed in the fires of life and then rises from the flames out of its own ashes. As a reflection of the phoenix, the peacock was often associated with immortality and rebirth, and considered sacred by many cultures and religions, including the Greek, Egyptian, Chinese, Christian, and Hindu. In Greek mythology, when Argus, the guard assigned to watch over the goddess Hera, fell asleep, his 100 eyes, listen to this, his eyes, right? His 100 eyes were given to the peacock, Hera's favorite bird. Chinese mythology states that the peacock's plumage is a blending of 5 colors that create the sweet harmony of sound. In Egypt, the bird was linked to the worship of the sun god Amun-Ra and associated with the all-seeing eye of Horus. The all-seeing eye of Horus, yes, the one you see in the Illuminati triangle, right? That everybody calls the Illuminati symbol, the all-seeing eye. This is where it comes from. It comes from the eye, well, what looks like an eye on the peacock's feather. There's so many references to that. We're going to continue to read and encounter that over our studies here. So we're going to continue. Right, it says, to the Hindus, the peacock was associated with Indra, the god of thunder, who became a peacock endowed with 100 eyes that enabled him to watch out for the demon Ravana. You see this? So thunder, again, Thor. We're going to see this later, thunder already, again. Christianity assigns the peacock as a symbol of death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, again. We continue. In China, Japan, and India, the phoenix is the peacock. Again, the phoenix is the peacock. You see? And the symbol of the sun also Ra, Thoth, symbol of the sun, right? In Bali, the peacock is a symbol of the entire sky. The pagan believed that when he died, his soul would become immortal and take possession of one of the stars in heaven from whence he originally came. It is significant that the peacock throne made at Delhi, India, in 1628 is supported by 12 pillars, one for each of the 12 signs of the zodiac. It is eye-opening to discover the peacock, sunbird, a symbol of Lucifer. There you go again, referring the peacock to Lucifer, a god behind all false gods, pictured on a Roman Catholic church window. Where? In a Roman Catholic church window. We're going to see this throughout this video. Encircled by the zodiac. In the church of Saint Maurice at Reims, France, we will find a woman, probably the Virgin Mary, pictured in a sun halo and crowned with 7 stars. In one hand she holds a peacock, around which stretches a circular band having on it the 12 signs of the zodiac. Another shocking observation regarding the Roman Catholic Church is her exaltation of her Pope when in procession, as he is carried on his portable throne. During this procession, 2 grooms carry large fans of peacock feathers in such a way that the seated Pope seems to have 2 wings on his shoulders, which are constantly in motion, and they make him appear as if he is flying. In ancient Rome and Greece, heaven was considered filled with eyes, the eyes representing the stars, the stars representing the homes of the dead. The god Argus was said to have hundreds of eyes. Again, these eyes of heaven were represented by the eyes found on the peacock feather. Now, in reference to Argus, again, now, if we go back, right, we're just talking about Thoth, right, slash Hermes, right, or the different epithets, right? What was an epithet? Descriptive name for the same person, just another descriptive name for the same person. So an epithet of Thoth would be Argeiphontes. It says here, Hermes epithet Argeiphontes, meaning Argus, slayer, recalls his slaying of the 100-eyed giant Argus Panoptes, who was watching over the heifer nymph Lo in the sanctuary of Queen Hera herself in Argus. Hermes placed a charm on Argus' eye with the caduceus to cause the giant to sleep. After this, he slew the giant. Argus' eye were then put into the tail of the peacock, a symbol of the goddess Hera. You see? So the eye of Argus, or the eye of Ra, right? Or this Hermes, right? The eye of Hermes, because it's just an epithet of Hermes, this eye of Thoth, or Ra, right? Was put into the tail of the peacock. You see? More corroboration. This is in Wikipedia, right? This is a different epithet of Hermes according to Wikipedia. Alright? Again, a symbol of the goddess Hera. We haven't gone to Hera, but we will soon. It says here, why do Christian conspiracy theories argue against the all-seeing eye from Illuminati when the eye is a symbol of Christian Trinity of God? With a question mark, according to whoever wrote this, right? So, it says here, ancient Greeks believed that the flesh of the peafowl did not decay after death, and so it became a symbol of immortality. Because the peafowl is also another description, I guess, of the Greeks of the peacock. This symbolism was adopted by early Christianity, and thus many early Christian paintings and mosaics show peacocks. The peacock is still used in Easter season, especially in the East. The eye in the peacock's tail feathers symbolize the all-seeing God, and in some interpretations of the church, a peacock drinking from a vase is used as a symbol of Christian believer drinking from the waters of eternal life. You hear this? Now, the peacock can also symbolize the cosmos, right? So we know that, you know, it's firmament, and above that, you know, it's an illusion what they tell you space is. So if one interprets its tail with its many eyes as the vault of heaven, dotted by the sun, moon, and stars, by adoption of old Persian and Babylonian symbolism, in which the peacock was associated with paradise and the tree of life. Again, if we remember the palm tree, right, the phoenix, the bird is again associated with immortality. In Christian iconography, the peacock is often depicted next to the tree of life. See, Christian symbolism says here. It says, bottom line, the eye is Christianity as a symbol for all-seeing triune God. Remember what triune God means, the triune God, right? That's that Trinity, that Thoth, three face, the three head, the three different aspects of a God, Trinity. So it says here, so the conspiracy theorists got this wrong, according to him. So he should look up the etymology of triune, or look up what it means and where it comes from. So, you know, this religions can give you so many rebuttals and excuses why they have these images, these idol images, right, on their windows and in part of their religion. But, you know, when we look for the foundational truths, we know better, right, what we're studying right now. So let's continue. It says, because of this belief that the peacock's flesh did not decay after death, the peacock became a symbol of Christ. And as such, the early Christian paintings and mosaics used peacock imagery. When the peacock displays its tail, it looks like hundreds of eyes are watching us. The all-seeing eye, again. Because of this, the peacock has been associated with the all-seeing eye of God, who sees all actions and all people, meaning that nothing escapes the universal justice. The peacock also came to symbolize the all-seeing Catholic Church. Okay, you see what it's symbolizing? The all-seeing Catholic Church. And who is this Catholic Church that has conquered and divided the nations and came and destroyed peoples over here, original Hebrews that were over here in America, in the name of the church and Jesus. Jesus. Continuing, who watches over her children continually, it says, day and night. So the peacock also came to symbolize the all-seeing Catholic Church. As you can see here, some of the images of some of the peacocks as you can see on the walls or these churches, right? It says peacocks were common decorative motifs on old churches and buildings. It says on the bottom there in red. And on the top here it says the eyes of the peacock feathers also symbolize the beatific vision, the direct perception and knowledge of God as he truly is, enjoyed by angels, Christ, and the saints in heaven, which was another reason it was decorative motive on medieval tomb sculptures. Okay, the peacock is a destroyer of serpents, and the bestiaries tell us it could swallow the poisonous venom without harm. Now, is that a good thing? Because I know that there's a duality to the serpents. You know, there is a part where the serpent means knowledge or wisdom, right? So there is this peacock destroying wisdom or knowledge, right? You know, it could refer to that as well. I mean, like the eagle eating the snake on the Mexican flag. So remember, eagle is the phoenix, another representation of the phoenix. So let's continue. It then used the poisons it swallowed to create its colorful plumage. So the peacock can eat poison, and then it says that that's why it has those colors on its tail, that it basically expels it and creates those colorful plumage that it has. For this reason, its blood was believed to dispel evil spirits, and its feathers and meat to cure snake bite and sickness. St. Augustine affirms this belief of the antiseptic qualities of the peacock flesh in the city of God, it says there. In Hinduism, the Ramayana relates that when the god Indra transforms himself into an animal, again the god Indra, he becomes a peacock. In India, the peacock was believed to have 1,000 eyes in its feathers and had power to kill snakes. Again, killing snakes. This sacred bird that symbolized the heavenly host is known to have been kept in Babylon for religious purposes. Aristotle mentions the peacock bird, and a reference in a play by Aristophanes may imply that a Persian ambassador brought a gift of peacocks. Alexander the Great imposed heavy penalties on those who killed Indian peacocks. The birds were depicted on Greek coins. They were sacred to Hera, and a myth relates how the goddess set the 100-eyed Argus to guard her husband's mistress, Lo, after Zeus sent Hermes to charm and kill Argus. Hera used the giant's eye to ornament the peacock's tail. Okay, there you go again, the eye. In Java, the peacock was associated with the devil. Again, peacocks associated with the devil, Lucifer, and the morning star, and the shining one, as we read earlier. In Mosul, in northern Iraq, there is a sect of Yazidis, and we're going to get into the Yazidis. You'll see how they worship a peacock that fell from heaven, who hold that the devil is not evil, and call him the peacock angel. Okay, like I just said. The worshippers of Satan could have chosen no better animal to represent the heavenly host as the proud ruler of the year and God behind all gods, it says there. So let's continue. Queen of Heaven and the peacock, phoenix connection, it says here. So the Queen of Heaven, right? June, Queen of Heaven, to the Romans, had a peacock as her sacred bird, and we'll get into that later as well with June. The peacock or phoenix has long been connected with the zodiac. Okay, again, reference to the zodiac, just like in the church window we read about earlier. The Yazidis, again, the open devil worshippers, says here, we mentioned earlier, to this day have 7 stone images of peacocks, which they say represent the 7 planets, in which they call Satan, which is merely the Arabic spelling for Tatan or Satan. Again, being linked to the stars, right? Her tail, her eyes are the stars spread over the sky, it says the peacock's tail. And over here it says that it represents the 7 planets, okay, the 7 wandering stars. 7 again, a reference with Enoch and Thoth, 7. Now let's bring Islam back into the story here. So it says here, peacocks in Islam. There are mixed tales told about peacocks in popular Islam. According to one story, God created a peacock which sat on a tree and prayed for 70,000 years using prayer beads. Then God put a mirror in front of the peacock, who was so pleased at its own beauty that it prostrated itself to God 5 times. So the tradition of 5 prayers a day arose among the Muslims. You hearing this? Where they got the 5 prayers per day? Okay, so it's not only influencing Christianity, it's influencing this Muslim world, right? This peacock, this energy, this pahanok, this phoenix, right? Straight out of Egypt. A rather less engaging popular story is told in Al-Qisais Qisas, circa 1100. The peacock is seduced by the promise of Satan that if he would help the latter enter paradise, he would teach him 3 words that would save him from illness, old age, and death. You see, so Satan is promising and tempting the peacock, it says here, right, according to the story. So the peacock enlists the aid of the serpent and helps Satan enter paradise. So the peacock all of a sudden needs the help of the serpent, right? First we were talking about him destroying the serpent. Now he's actually looking for the serpent for knowledge, right? For wisdom, for help, how to get Satan in, right? Where he later seduces Eve, it says, after he let him in. The peacock, which until then had been the beautiful bird of paradise with the most beautiful voice, is cast out of heaven along with the serpent and Satan and loses his voice. So it's like separating the serpent and Satan here, right? You see this? Alright, so let's continue. So as according to Charles Godfrey Leland, it says, to paradise, the Arabs say, Satan could never find a way until the peacock let him in. Again, Charles Godfrey Leland. So readers familiar with the Genesis account, it says here, of the expulsion from Eden will be fascinated by the contrast of details in this Islamic version. Iblis, remember Iblis, right? Satan for the Muslims. Very similar and sounds very much so like Iblis, Thoth, right? The Egyptian god, the Iblis. It says here, dwells beyond the gates of paradise. Through cunning and deceit, he plays upon the vanity of the peacock and serpent and gains entrance. Again, Satan uses the peacock and the serpent. He's not the serpent. It's separated here. And gains entrance, eluding the angel who guards the gate with his flaming sword. Promising her youth and health, Iblis tricks Eve into eating the fruit of the weed tree. Once she and Adam have eaten, God's wrath drives them from paradise, condemning Eve to painful childbirth, the peacock to loss of his melodious voice, the serpent to loss of her legs, and forcing Iblis to be cast back into the torments of all eternity. But expelled through the gates of repentance and grace, the human pair are reminded these gates are also entrances back into paradise. So you see how the peacock has a very strong story here in correlation to what we're studying, as you know, something to do with Satan. You know, he messed up. He let Satan in. He helped Iblis get in, whoever this Iblis is, because it's not serpent yet, as we have been taught, because right here they're separated, right? So let's continue. So just like the story of that we know about Lucifer or Satan not wanting to bow down to God's new creation, the human Adam, right? Because he thought he was better than him. He was more powerful. He was more beautiful. He was more divine, right? He said he was created out of fire. So, and the last part that we just read, Iblis was cast out because he tried to sneak in. He tricked the peacock and the serpent, right? Here, Satan grew very jealous of Adam, causing Michael to order Satan to bow down. But Satan refused. Satan refused to pay homage before a creature made out of dust, and a mammal at that. The Quran noted Iblis' refusal to bow to Adam in several of its scriptures. Again, right there. Noting that Satan, a being of fire, would not worship a mortal made of clay. Satan was then banished from heaven, but was provided respite from the fires of hell by God until Judgment Day, so that he could lead as many humans astray as possible. Did you hear that? Okay, so look what it's saying. It's saying that he didn't just completely get rid of him, right? God didn't completely get rid of Iblis or Satan, or Iblis, the Iblis, Thoth, this falling angel. He didn't get exactly rid of him because he allowed him, right? Like we said, who gives wisdom to the Iblis? Job, so that he can lead as many humans astray as possible, right? And look what's going on. Look how many humans he has led away already. I mean, we're just putting all this together. Look what's going on. Let's wake up. So Iblis was noted as one of the disobedient ones. Okay, Iblis, the Ibis, Thoth. Indeed, suggestion others followed Iblis out of heaven to plot their poorly planned revenge against the descendants of Adam. So Iblis took with him some of the other angels, right? Some of the other disobedient ones. It says here, according to the Quran, God created the first Satan, Iblis, a king to a jinn, out of fire. The primary characteristic of the devil, besides hubris, so fire can mean light, right? Out of light. And besides hubris, right? We're going to read about what hubris means. Is that he has no power other than the power to cast evil suggestions into the hearts of men and women. The Quran says that Satan was among the angels whom God ordered to bow down to Adam after his creation. It says in 1850, and mention when we said to the angels, prostrate to Adam, and they prostrated, except for Iblis. He was of the jinn and departed from the command of his Lord. Then will you take him and his descendants as allies other than me, while they are enemies to you? Wretched it is for the wrongdoers as an exchange, says there. Continuing, it was after Satan's disobedience of God that the title of Shaitan was given to him. Alright, so after he disobeyed was when he was called Shaitan or Satan, which can be roughly translated as enemy, rebel, evil, or devil. Shaitan then claims that if the punishment for his act of disobedience is to be delayed until the day of judgment, then he will divert many of Adam's own descendants from the straight path during his, block right there, but rest of his respite. God accepts the claims of Iblis, right, Iblis or Thoth, Iblis, and guarantees recompense to Iblis and his followers in the form of hellfire, in order to test mankind and jinn alike. So God allowed these fallen angels to bring you into disorder. Allah allowed Iblis, as I just said, to roam the earth to attempt to convert others away from his path. And he's been doing a good job. He was sent to earth along with Adam and Eve, eventually luring them into eating the fruit from the forbidden tree. The devil in Islamic theology, says here. According to the Oxford Dictionary of Islam, shaitan in the singular and plural shayateen are used in the Quran often interchangeably with Iblis, okay, Iblis, who is considered to be a particular shaitan, he's a type of shaitan, he's not the shaitan, okay, Iblis, Thoth. In Islamic theology, Iblis is a being created from the fire who was allowed to mingle with angels in the heavens until he rejected the command of God to bow before Adam. So he was invited to heaven. He was allowed to mingle with the angels. He wasn't an angel. He was made out of fire. It was different. Alright? When God created Adam, the first human, he said to the angels, and mention, O Muhammad, it says there, when your Lord said to the angels, indeed, I will make upon the earth a successive authority. They said, will you place upon it one who causes corruption therein and sheds blood, while we declare your praise and sanctify you? Allah said, indeed, I know that which you do not know. All the angels prostrate, but Iblis does not. Iblis justified his decision to saying Iblis did not bow down. And says he justified his decision because he claims to be better than a human. Allah said, what prevented you from prostrating when I commanded you? Satan said, or Iblis, I am better than him. You created me from fire and created him from clay. Iblis requests a reprieve until the day of resurrection to try to mislead the people in any way he can. God reprieves Iblis, but he also warns that Iblis would have no authority over his ibad or servants, So it says he's not even gonna have. He can try, but he will never be able to have no authority over his descendants, right? The Hebrews. As for my servant, no authority shall thou have over them, his servants, right? The Most High servants. Who is the Most High servants? It says here, consequently, God expelled Satan from heaven, with the latter promising to lure mankind into disbelief and evil as an act of revenge directed towards Adam, as Iblis told Allah, right? He was gonna, mislead his descendants. It says here also, some scholars call Satan the peacock of angels, referring his foolish hubris. We're gonna again read what hubris is, and just want to remind you, we've went from the peacock all of a sudden to Iblis, right, and Satan, but we're returning again back to the peacock, right? What does it say here? Some scholars call Satan the peacock of angels. On the other hand, other scholars believe that there are no such things as heavenly jinn or fiery angels, and thus Satan was not an angel. He was a jinn, whom God elevated to heaven as a reward for his worship and righteousness, just like Thoth, was chosen amongst the children of men, of the sons of men. This is also used to explain why Satan managed to refuse God's order, as angels obey God's orders without questioning or complaining. So yeah, so he had his, almost like a human has the free will, right? As for the angels, they prostrated before Adam to show their homage and obedience to God. However, Satan, adamant in his view that man is inferior and unlike angels, was given the ability to choose, made a choice of not obeying God. This caused him to be expelled by God, a fact that Satan blamed on humanity. Hassan of Basra, an eminent Muslim theologian who lived in the 7th century AD, was quoted as saying, "Iblis was not an angel, even for the time of an eye wink. He is the origin of jinn, as Adam is of mankind." Continuing, it says, in Islam the devil again is called Shaitan, and refers to all evil forces under the leadership of the arch-devil known as Iblis or Iblis, or the Ibis/Thoth. The primary characteristic of Iblis is hubris. Hubris. Take away the H. Ibris, the prophet from Islam. Not only did he deem himself a superior creation to Adam, he also demonstrated arrogance by challenging God's judgment and commanding him to prostrate. His primary activity is to incite humans and jinn to commit evil through deception. So not only humans, he convinces jinn, right, his followers, his other fallen angels, which is referred to as whispering into the hearts. I guess we get the snake symbology, like the snake, right, whispering, being evil, sneaky. The Quran mentions that Satans are the assistants of those who disbelieve and commit immorality. So the Quran is making Satans plural, right? Satans. And it says they're the assistants of those who disbelieve and commit immorality. So it seems to be a type of people based on what they do. Or a type of, not people, but just entities and based on what they do. Again, just to make it clear, it says Shaitan is the equivalent of Satan in Islam. While Shaitan, from the root Satan, is an adjective meaning astray or distant, sometimes translated as the devil. So astray, right? He went astray because he didn't want to bow, or he became distant. He distanced himself from the others who prostrated. Sometimes translated as devil. That can be applied to both man. Okay, it can be applied to a man and jinn. Man and jinn. Okay? Those can be classified into fallen angels or unbelievers among the jinn and pagan deities. Okay, putting all this together, right? So let's go back. An adjective meaning astray or distant, sometimes translated as devil. That can be applied to both man and jinn. Alright? Those can be classified into fallen angels. Alright, these Satans are fallen angels, just more than one. Among unbelievers among the jinn and pagan deities. Okay, Iblis, here we go again. Iblis is the personal name of the devil who is mentioned in the Quranic account of Genesis. According to the Quran, Iblis, the Arabic name used, disobeyed an order from God to bow to Adam, and as a result, Iblis was forced out of heaven. However, he was given respite from further punishment until the day of judgment. Shaitan can also refer to devilish temptations inside the mind, described as whisperings. Okay. Down below, the original Hebrew term Satan is a noun from a verb meaning primarily to obstruct or oppose, right? He opposed, he didn't want to bow down, as it is found in Numbers 22:22, 1 Samuel 29:4, Psalms 109:6. Ha-Satan is traditionally translated as the accuser or the adversary. The definite article ha, the, is used to show that this is a title bestowed on a being versus the name of a being. You see, so these are titles, this is an action, this is something that people are doing, disobedience. Thus this being would be referred to as the Satan. Now let's learn about hubris, right? What Shaitan and this Iblis was doing, or what their act they were doing, or what they were being described to follow, this hubris, right? As also says hybris with a Y. So take away that H, what do you get? Just the Ibris, all right? Ibris, Ibris isn't Ibris or Idris, right? Idris, Iblis, Ibris. Very similar, these words, right? Now let's continue. Describes a personality quality of extreme or foolish pride or dangerous overconfidence. So you see what it's saying that Shaitan is, right? Or Iblis, what it means, right? It says describes a personality quality of extreme or foolish pride or dangerous overconfidence. In its ancient Greek context, it typically describes behavior that defies the norms of behavior or challenges the gods, in which in turn brings about the downfall or nemesis of the perpetrator of hubris. Alright, so it's an act, right? It's like an act, verb. It's like an adjective as well, describing what they're doing, like they're defying, they're going against the whole rules, they're just being in disorder, right? It says the adjectival form of the noun hubris is hubristic. Hubris is usually perceived as a characteristic of an individual rather than a group. Okay, although the group the offender belongs to may unintentionally suffer consequences from the wrongful act, hubris often indicates a loss of contact with reality. A loss of contact with reality. Okay, hubris. All right. And an overestimation of one's own competence, accomplishments, or capabilities. Okay, you hear that? Contrary to common expectations, hubris is not necessarily associated with high self-esteem, but with highly fluctuating or variable self-esteem, and a gap between inflated self-perception and a more modest reality. Alright? C.S. Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity that pride is the anti-God state, the position in which the ego and the self are directly opposed to God. Unchastity, anger, greed, drunkenness, and all that are mere flea bites in comparison. It was through pride that the devil became the devil. Pride leads to every other vice. It is the complete anti-God state of mind. Okay, so this is hubris. Alright, so now we're gonna get into we're gonna continue with these Shaitan or Iblis, or this Peacock, right? The Peacock angel. And we're gonna get into the Jasidis. Again, we've heard about them before, but we're gonna find out now exactly who they are in case you guys don't know. Alright, so the Jasidis, right? They worship this Peacock angel, right? This falling Peacock angel that fell. This was a falling angel, they admit it. So we're going to read their story right now. So it says, since the late 16th century, some Muslims have accused Jasidis of devil worship due to the similarity between the Quranic story of Iblis and the account of Melek, refusal to bow to Adam. Whereas Muslims revere Iblis for refusing to submit to God and bow to Adam, believing that his defiance caused him to fall from God's grace. Jasidis revere Taus Melek for his independence and believe that God's command to Taus Melek was a test to see if he understood his own majestic and sublime nature. Accusations of devil worship fueled centuries of violent persecution, which have led Jasidi communities to concentrate in remote mountainous regions of northwestern Iraq. The Jasidi taboo against the Arabic word shaitan and on words containing the consonants sh and t have been used to suggest a connection between this Taus Melek and Iblis. Okay, you hearing this? Although no evidence exists to suggest Jasidi worships Taus Melek as the same figure. So, but there is a connection, right, to Taus Melek and Iblis. They did the exact same thing. They didn't bow to Adam, and we have Iblis already being referred to as the Peacock angel. So, and this is a Peacock angel. Let's continue. So we got to Melek Taus, right? Taus. So I know you've been following along and what we've been linking up all these characters to be, right? So look at these two words, Melek Taus, right? Thoth, Melek. You're going to see later on what Melek means. Melek, it's like an angel, right? Melek is the etymology of angel is Malak, Melek. Okay, so let's continue. It says Melek Taus, also spelled Melek Taus, Malik, right? Translated in English as Peacock angel. Peacock angel, the peacock. We're still talking about the peacock, right? Who was the peacock? The phoenix, right? Who was the phoenix? Pahanok, Enoch, Enoch slash Thoth, Enoch slash Idris, Enoch slash Hermes, Melek Taus, Thoth, same. Is one of the central figures of the Jasidi religion. In Jasidi creation stories, God created the world and entrusted it to the care of the 7 holy beings, often known as angels or Hef-Ser, the 7 mysteries, preeminent, which is Taus Melek, the peacock angel. Again, the 7, and I told you 7 associated to Enoch, associated to Thoth. A lot, and here you go again. Like many aspects of the secretive Jasidi religion, Taus Melek is subject to varied and ambiguous interpretations. The Jasidi Book of Revelation, the Keteba Jawa, a text believed by some to have been written by non-Jasidis in the early 20th century, but based on Jasidi oral tradition, even though a 19th century translation of the text exists, is purported to contain the words of Taus Melek. It states that he allocates responsibilities, blessings and misfortunes upon humanity as he sees fit, and that it's not for the race of Adam to question his choices. And the peacock angel, right? What did Allah or God allow Shaitan or Iblis to do? To go deceive the descendants, right? So of course we cannot question what he is doing, because it is being allowed by the Most High. So does this make sense? Yes, it does. Taus Melek, Thoth, influencing another religion. Here we go again. Peacock, another bird, right? Or continuing with the peacock. So it says here, Melek Taus refused to submit to Adam, right? It says the fundamental belief of Jasidism narrates that this supreme being, Jazda, sent 7 archangels to take care of the earth and put his favorite Melek Taus, also called the angel peacock, right? His favorite was Melek Taus, just like they say Lucifer was the Most High's favorite and most beautiful, and the most intelligent and wise, right? Who was created the first from the divine illumination itself, from the light, right? Divine light illumination. Since Jazda is an inactive force, the task of saving the earth and its creatures fell to these archangels. But when this God called upon the 7 archangels to bring him dust from the earth to create the first human being, Adam, and ordered Melek to protect him at all costs, he replied in anger, "How can I submit to another being?" He said, "I am of your enlightenment, while Adam is made of dust." Melek Taus' refusal to put himself at the service of human beings provoked divine fury and condemned him to hell. Continuing with the Jasidi story, it says the falling angel, identified by Christians and Muslims as the devil, Lucifer or Satan, managed to quench hell with tears accumulated for 7,000 years, garnering the respect of the Yazidis, who, according to the most accepted theory, do not venerate Melek Taus for love towards him, but with the aim of reaching Jazda's forgiveness someday, and then remembering those who helped him achieve this purpose. So this is their reasoning, right? Thus the peacock angel, which in primitive Christianity was a symbol of immortality, because it is considered that its flesh is enduring more time without decomposing. Again, we've read this earlier, right? Became with its act of disobedience in the alter ego of God, inseparable from him, and protagonist of the 5 daily prayers. All right, remember the 5 daily prayers? Its direct link with the devil derives from the other name that receives this angel, Shaitan, which is the Arabic word to designate Satan, which has caused the Yazidis to erroneously be labeled as worshippers of the devil, as they understand it, Muslims and Christians. However, the word Taus is most likely derived from Greek and relates to the words Zeus and Theos. Okay, hear that? Zeus and Theos, alluding to the meaning of God. In this way, Melek Taus would be translated as the angel of God. Okay, all right, you hear all this? So let's see what angel means. The word angel in English is a blend of Old English angel with a hard in Old French angeli, Latin angelus, messenger, which in turn was borrowed from Greek angelos. Angelos itself may be a Oriental loan, Persian mounted courier, right, or like messenger. The word's earliest form is Mycenaean, a kettle. So it says the angelos is the default Septuagint's translation of the biblical Hebrew term malak, denoting simply messenger, without specifying its nature. In the Latin Vulgate, the meaning becomes bifurcated when malak or angelos is supposed to denote a human messenger. Words like nuntius and legatus are applied. So, as it says here, you see malak, malaktus, right? Malak is angel. They say that's what it means, the peacock angel. Malak, they say in their language, means angel, but we see angel means messenger, right? Or just courier, messenger, interpreter in some other versions. So again, you know, we're just going back right to Thoth, right? Thoth was considered one of the messengers, right? He was the intermediary between the gods, right? Ra, right? That was his assistant. Remember, his secretary. He settled disputes between the gods. He was the messenger, right? Hermes was also considered the messenger, and also Mercury was considered the messenger of the gods as well. So we're just going right back to Thoth again, over and over. And I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I mean, I'd like to take a break right now. It's a lot of information. If you made it this far, well, man, then, you know, I appreciate it, because it's a lot of information. I just want to put it all here recorded before, because it's too much to hold in my head, you know what I mean? So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you continue the journey we're discovering here, what we're learning, what we're putting together. This trickster, right? Hermes, the trickster, Thoth / Enoch / Idris / the phoenix / the peacock / the eagle. Alright, so what else are we gonna find? You're gonna see what else. We're gonna continue in the next videos. I don't know how many is coming. I just gotta put it all out there, and whatever amount of videos it takes, I guess that's what it'll be. So I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good evening, good night, good day, whatever time it is and where you're at. Thanks for watching, and be blessed. Be blessed.